Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. And so we say all politics are local, right? Let's talk about something that is even more local and try to find out perhaps if there's some politicking element beneath it. It's local government administration. And so sometime last week, the president had warned governors to comply with the Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy by ensuring direct payment of funds to a local government. Else, he would have to deploy his executive powers to see to it that this is done. And the Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees and, of course, ALGON are jointly throwing their weight behind President Tinubu's position on this particular bit of, constitutional matter, if you like. So let's find out, the implications of this. And joining us on this segment, we have Mr. Aliu Kankara. He is the President, Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees. We also have joining him, Mr. Ekemini Udim, legal practitioner, and both gentlemen join us virtually this morning on the program. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, and a very Merry Christmas to both of you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, and a very Merry Xmas to you in advance.
All right, I'm going to begin with you, Mr. Kankara. So, but for, reports coming through sometime a few months ago by ALGON and some other politicians who would call out governors, perhaps we would not know to what extent governors are implementing the Supreme Court ruling on local government autonomy. Of course, in September, because of the constitutional issues in court between the former PDP government and the ruling APC, we wouldn't have known that there were concerns about non-payment of local government funds. And we could talk about some other states as well. But from where you stand as the president of NULGE, help us with information, if you like, about which states are actually actively implementing the Supreme Court ruling from last year, and which states are not receiving or receiving only partial percentages of their local government funds.
Thank you for this very important question. What we need to understand is there's a difference between what the Supreme Court says and what is already happening on the ground. You can hear some states claiming that they are implementing local government autonomy, but that's not true. That's not what the Supreme Court decision says. The decision of the Supreme Court was that this money should go directly from the federation account to the local government account. And after this moment I'm talking to you, there is no local government in the country that is receiving its allocation from the federation account. This money still go into the same state and local government joint account, which is being controlled by the state government. So we don't have any compliance with the decision of the Supreme Court up to this moment by any state. That is the situation.
All right. Let me bring it to you, Mr. Udim. The president said if failure to comply with the Supreme Court ruling, that's to the governors now, that he would have to deploy his executive powers to ensure that it is done. From the legal perspective, help us understand the implication of that proposed decision by the president, and can we rely on it when you consider variations in politics in some states of the federation, for instance, Osun?
Well, it is within the powers of the president to use executive powers in a democracy. But mostly executive powers, you use it when there are no clear-cut provisions of the law on how to go about a thing, or when there is urgency and you cannot wait for 1 or 2 days to pass, and so you make an executive power to take care of that urgency. So it is within the powers of the president to do that. But when you look at the local government autonomy situation, there is no emergency because the Supreme Court of this country had ruled clearly that money should be paid directly to the local government areas in the country, 774 local government areas. And that is the decision of the highest court in the land. If Nigeria were to obey the rule of law the way other countries obey, that would have been implemented immediately. So the issue of the president now coming to threaten them, to say that he's going to issue executive order, would not have even come up, because the judgments of the Supreme Court would have been implemented immediately. In any country of the world where democracy thrives, judgments of courts of law are not delayed in implementation, let alone the judgments of the Supreme Court of the country. So now, I feel that the president had over-pampered the governors. I feel that the presidency was even in breach of the judgment of the Supreme Court, which said pay money directly to the local government councils. Now, after that judgment, the Accountant General of the Federation kept paying money to the state governors. The presidency kept approving the payment of money to the state governors for them to hold and then transmit to the local government areas in the country. That, for me, was in breach of the judgment of the Supreme Court. Now, we have to run a country where we have to respect the rule of law. The Supreme Court's judgment was very clear. I don't know if all the governors have taken time to read that judgment. Governors have talked about joint accounts, so they are saying, oh, the joint accounts provision in the Constitution has not been amended, and for that reason, there's no way we can free it up, and so on. Now, go back to that judgment. You see that even this issue was addressed by their lordships of the Supreme Court. They said that the intendment of the makers of the Constitution was not for the joint accounts to be used as a reason to take money belonging to another tier of government. They rather went back memory lane and said, there was a time in Nigeria where there was no electronic transfer, there was no electronic banking. And so people needed to go to Abuja to get their checks and clear at the central bank. And for that reason, for the sake of convenience, the joint accounts provision was made so that the monies belonging to an entire state, local governments and the states, will be given to the accountants, to the commissioner for finance of the state, to take the money back home and then distribute to the local government areas. And the Supreme Court went ahead to say that such situation no more applies, because today you can stay in Abuja and make electronic transfer to the local government areas. So the Supreme Court had addressed that issue of the joint account that is in the Constitution and said that it was just for convenience. Now that convenience has been overtaken by time. Today you can transfer whatever amount of money from Abuja to any part of the world. So there was no need still returning the joint account payment. So the federal government was wrong, to have continued to pay money to the governors of the states of the federation, because that was in clear violation of the judgment of the Supreme Court. Now, don't forget that the Supreme Court also made a clear pronouncement about the illegality of having caretaker committees at the local government areas. And if you look across Nigeria, everybody has respected that. I doubt if there is any local government area today in Nigeria that is managed by caretaker committee. Everybody took steps to make sure that, the local government areas are now governed by democratically elected local government chairmen. So why pick and choose which one to obey? I feel that the decision of the Supreme Court on financial autonomy for the local government areas resides largely in the hands of His Excellency the President, with due respect to him, largely in the hands of the federal government, because it is for the clear implementation of the judgment of the Supreme Court. It doesn't even need executive order, because the Supreme Court has already done what the President would have done with an executive order.
Ms. Odim, let me come in
directly. And therefore, if the Supreme Court's judgment is complied with by the presidency, because the presidency is the executive, and it is the job of the executive under Section 5 of the Constitution to implement laws and implement judgments of court. So
let me bring in Mr. Kankara. Yes, your point is well noted. Let me bring in Mr. Kankara. They are, you're the legal mind that will help us around the legalese. Mr. Kankara, what is the next line of action? I think this judgment came in 2024, July, when the Supreme Court was very express in that decision. Now, the political understanding was to the effect that we're not going to pay monies to the state. except they have democratically elected governance system as provided for in Section 7 of the Constitution. So there was an understanding to the fact that, okay, conduct elections, take out all of this aberration you call transition committee, caretaker committee, whatever name you go by, take them out of the system. And then, according to, as the lawyer has alluded to, literally every state now has a democratically elected officials at the grassroots level. So what have they been telling you as an excuse for not doing what they're supposed to do? Now, not the state government, the federal government, which has a responsibility to obey the decision of the Supreme Court to pay monies directly to the local government areas. Vis-a-vis, let's juxtapose that with the provision of the joint account that is enshrined in the Grand Norm. Mr. Kankara.
Well, thank you so much. You see, let me also add my voice to what the lawyer has just said. It is the responsibility of the federal government to implement the judgment of the Supreme Court, not the responsibility of the state governors. Because it is the federal government that is paying this money. And the Supreme Court says, pay this money directly to the local government. And the federal government has not done that yet. So there is no any reason given by the federal government for not paying this money directly to the state government. From our own point of view, we view it as if the federal government is just playing politics with this Supreme Court decision, because we see no reason why the president, with due respect to the president, Mr. President, is just to issue directives to the Accountant General, Minister of Finance, and the other federal government agencies responsible for the payment of this money. But up to this moment, there is no clear directives to these agencies to pay this money to the local government directly. They are still paying the money through the state and local government joint account. It is not the governors that are paying this money. It is the federal government. So what we expect the federal government to do is to direct the agencies responsible for this payment to make this payment directly to the local government. We have cases whereby a local government will go to CBN trying to open an account, but the CBN will deny them access to even their facility because they don't have directives from their head office to do that.
Mr. Kankara, if
you
can hear me, just a moment.
There is a little confusion here.
Mr. Kankara, there is no confusion. It's just implementation. And my question is, 1 year and 6 months perhaps after that judgment, most local governments are now being governed by democratically elected officials. The government has not done what the Supreme Court has said it should do. What is your next line of action? That's my question.
Well, our next line of action is to continue to appeal and put pressure on the federal government to ensure the implementation of this Supreme Court decision. We will continue to remind the federal government that this is a Supreme Court decision. This is a decision of the highest court in the land, and we are in a democracy. So this decision must be respected. It is not about whether we like it or we don't like it, but it has to be respected. Since we are in a democracy, we have to respect the rule of law. So our next line of action is to continue to appeal to the federal government and also to come back in-house, talk to our allies, NLC, other our international partners who are also assisting us in this advocacy for local government autonomy, talk to our traditional rulers, talk to our governors as well, like we have been doing, to see that how we can rally behind the federal government to see that this Supreme Court judgment is implemented.
Right.
For the benefit of our people.
All right, Comrade, I'll come to you in a bit to get a sense of operations, particularly in your own local government where you work. But let me go to Mr. Udim and speak to the political concerns, right? So there's what the law says, and there's what politics dictates in that sense. So for a lot of the governors, and I know the president reiterated recently that, you know, this local government autonomy is a must. But for most of the governors, what they interpret this as is the federal government taking over local governments, so sort of skipping them and having powers over the local government directly. And for them, they think it's not proper. So that means the federal government can do anything in my local government, because a lot of them see the end game is also politics, election, outcome of it. So in terms of the politics and the political solution, what would it look like? What assurances do you think the governors should be getting so they can support this? Because whether you like it or not, if the governors say, well, we don't want to have this, it will be tough.
Well, this matter had been taken off the realm of politics by the judgment of the Supreme Court of Nigeria in July 2024. This issue, the question of whether to pay money directly to local government councils in Nigeria or not, had been taken off completely from the realm of politics. It's not something to discuss in political meetings or, you know, when governors meet with the president, they discuss it. It's a matter that has been closed. Unless we're a country that doesn't respect the rule of law or doesn't respect the authority of the Supreme Court. Remember, when the president declared state of emergency in Rivers State, he cited the judgments of the Supreme Court. Most of the things that are done in this country, judgments of the Supreme Court, judgments of courts of law, are usually cited. So we should not be a country where we cite judgments when it is convenient and refuse to cite the same judgments when it is not politically convenient. The Supreme Court of this country has spoken clearly. It talks about direct funding. So someone that is outside Nigeria would be surprised that so many months after the judgment of the Supreme Court, that judgment is still being debated, is still being not complied with. So politics must take the backseat of this issue. Payment of the money directly to the local government councils is what the Supreme Court of this country has said. And we must respect the authority of the Supreme Court. Now, when the president made that statement in the gathering, you saw so many governors there. I never saw one governor raise his hand to say, Your Excellency, I am sorry. In my own state, what you are accusing governors of is not happening. Now, one would have said, okay, it was such a formal gathering that the governors will not be expected to raise their hands. Now, what happened after that? The president made that statement like more than 5 days ago. No press statements from any governor of this country. Now, that then leaves us with the conclusion that what the president is saying is true. It is possible that all the governors in this country are guilty of this very issue. And it is wrong signal for us. It doesn't provide good optics for Nigeria that all the governors will be in disobedience of the clear judgments of the Supreme Court.
All right.
But again, like I said, governors will always do politics as much as they can. They will want to control the funds because funds going to the local government areas so much money. So they want to control. Even as we speak, some governors have already made the local government chairman to go into projects that it will take them the next 3 years to exit. They will keep paying money, even when the money is paid directly to them from the federation account. Right. So now, what the president needs to do, and I must thank the president for rising to the occasion. I'm sure he has heard all the complaints from the local government chairman or wherever. I thank him for that. Now, what Nigerians need to see the president do is from the next payments from FAC, Your Excellency, sir, please, your executive order should be directed to the Accountant General of the Federation. Direct him to pay the money straight into the account of the local government areas in the country. Forget it, you don't even need the permission of the governors.
All right.
His Excellency, the president did say.
I must come in there, Mr. Ikemini, and we're about to wrap up. I just want to confirm very quickly from Comrade Kankara. You said, as it stands, no state is paying local government funds to any local government in all the 36 states of the Federation. Please clarify. There are some reports that in some states like Lagos and Rivers, local governments are receiving their allocation. Just clarify that. Is that true? Or it's a blanket statement that all 36 states. 10 seconds, please.
What I said is the Supreme Court decision was that this money should go from the federation account directly to the local government account. And there is no local government that is receiving money from the federation account directly. It is through the state and local government joint account. And that is not the decision of the Supreme Court.
All right.
That's what I was saying. That was what I said. The issue is there is difference between a state government when they receive money from the federation account into the state local government joint account and then releasing the money to the local government. There is difference.
Okay.
This one is that this money should come from the federation account directly to the local government account, and there is no any local government.
Thank you for the clarification. We must anchor at this point, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We've been talking with Mr. Kimini Udim, legal practitioner, and Comrade Aliu Kankara, who is the president, Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees. Of course, clearly it's an ongoing conversation. There needs to be more understanding and clarity of the Supreme Court judgment such that there will be no ambiguity. We'll bring this back subsequently. But we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll return to our conversation on Dirty December. Just how dirty is it in some states that are already jiving to the atmosphere of Christmas? Stay with us. We'll be right back.